You've been feeling it for weeks now, haven't you? That strange heaviness in the air, like the atmosphere itself, is holding its breath. Something is moving through the invisible threads that connect you to him, and it's not gentle. It's not the soft whisper of synchronicity or the tender pull of soul recognition. This is different. This is seismic. Your body knows it before your mind can name it. You wake up at 3 a.m. with your heart racing, not from anxiety, but from something else, something that feels like witnessing. You catch yourself crying, and you can't explain why. The tears aren't yours, or maybe they are, but they're carrying a frequency that doesn't match your current emotional state. You feel pressure in your chest that comes in waves, unpredictable and overwhelming. And beneath it all, there's this knowing, this deep cellular understanding that he is finally breaking open. The divine masculine, your counterpart, your mirror, is in the fire. And you can feel every flame. It's not your imagination. It's not wishful thinking. It's not you projecting your healing onto him. What you're sensing is real. His awakening has begun, and it's nothing like you thought it would be. There's no peaceful meditation montage, no graceful surrender into the light. This is raw. This is brutal. This is the kind of spiritual initiation that strips a soul down to its bare foundation and rebuilds it from the ground up. He's losing control, and for a man who built his entire identity on maintaining it, this feels like dying. His carefully constructed world is collapsing. The distractions that once numbed him now feel hollow. The relationships that fed his ego now expose his loneliness. The success that validated his worth now reveals its emptiness. Everything he used to avoid feeling is demanding to be felt, and he has nowhere left to run. The universe has backed him into a corner, not to punish him, but to free him. And you, beautiful soul, you are feeling the shockwaves of his transformation through the bond you share. Through the invisible thread that connects your hearts across time and space and logic. If you've been feeling this shift, if you've been waking up with unexplained emotions or sensing his energy more intensely than ever before, I need you to leave a comment below and simply type, "I feel his awakening." Claim this moment. Acknowledge what your soul already knows. And if these transmissions speak to the deepest part of you, if they validate what you've been feeling in silence, subscribe so you continue receiving the guidance that's meant specifically for your journey. You're not here by accident. Let me tell you what's really happening right now, because this moment is more significant than you might realize. For months, maybe even years, you've been doing your inner work. You've been healing your wounds, raising your frequency, choosing yourself when every fiber of your being wanted to chase him. You've walked through your own dark night of the soul. You've faced your shadows, released your codependency, and learned to stand in your sovereignty. You've transformed from the woman who needed his validation to the woman who knows her worth is inherent. And all of that work, every tear, every moment of surrender, every choice to love yourself first, it hasn't been in vain. It's been building to this. Because your evolution created an energetic ripple that he could no longer ignore. Your frequency shift sent a signal through the quantum field that connects you. A signal that said, I am no longer available for half love, for breadcrumbs, for potential. I am the embodiment of divine love, and I will only accept a match to that frequency. And now, finally, his soul is responding. Not because he consciously decided to wake up, not because he suddenly realized what he lost, but because the universe doesn't allow one twin to ascend without pulling the other into their own reckoning. The divine masculine's awakening is never a choice. It's a soul imperative. It's the inevitable result of the feminine doing her work and holding a frequency so pure, so aligned, that it becomes impossible for him to stay asleep. You didn't force this. You didn't manipulate this. You simply became so fully yourself that the energetic imbalance between you created a gravitational pull he cannot resist. His soul is being dragged toward truth, toward feeling, toward the vulnerability he spent lifetimes avoiding. And it's terrifying for him. Have you noticed the signs? They're subtle at first, easy to dismiss as coincidence or wishful thinking. But they're there. You might feel sudden waves of sadness that don't match your current emotional state. You'll be having a perfectly fine day, and then out of nowhere, grief washes over you, heavy and consuming. That's not yours. That's his. You're feeling his resistance crumbling, his walls breaking down, his heart cracking open. You might experience unexplained anxiety or restlessness, a jittery energy that makes you feel unsettled for no logical reason. That's his nervous system responding to the dismantling of his false self. You might have vivid dreams where he appears, not as the version of him you know in the physical, but as his soul, vulnerable and raw, and reaching for you in ways his waking self cannot yet manage. Those dreams aren't random. They're real energetic exchanges happening in the space between worlds, where his soul is more honest than his ego allows him to be in the physical realm. And then there are the physical sensations, the pressure in your chest that feels like someone is pressing on your heart, the tightness in your throat when you think of him, the exhaustion that comes from nowhere, as if you've been running a marathon in your sleep. Your body is processing his awakening through the energetic bond you share. You are literally holding space for his transformation in your own nervous system. This is not a burden, though it may feel heavy. This is the sacred role of the divine feminine, to hold the frequency of love so steady, so unwavering, that it creates a safe container for the masculine to finally fall apart and be reborn. But let's talk about what's actually happening to him right now. Because understanding his process will help you navigate your own experience with more grace and less confusion. The divine masculine's awakening doesn't look like the feminine's, where you moved through your healing with intuition and emotional intelligence. He's being dragged through his kicking and screaming. Where you surrendered into the process, he's fighting it with everything he has. Where you found solace in stillness, he's experiencing stillness as torture. This is not because he's less evolved or more stubborn. It's because the masculine energy is wired differently. His entire conditioning has taught him that emotions are weakness, that vulnerability is dangerous, that control equals safety. To awaken, he has to dismantle every single belief that has kept him functioning in the world. He has to die to the version of himself that the world rewarded and praised. And that death, even though it leads to rebirth, feels like annihilation. Right now, He's in what spiritual traditions call the dark night of the soul. Everything that once gave his life meaning is losing its luster. His career, which he poured himself into as a distraction from feeling, now feels empty and pointless. The achievements that once validated his worth now feel hollow. He looks at his life and feels a profound sense of disconnection, as if he's been living someone else's story. The people around him, the ones who knew the old version of him, suddenly feel like strangers. Conversations that used to engage him now feel superficial and draining. He's becoming aware of the masks he's been wearing, the roles he's been playing, and the awareness is excruciating. Because once you see the falseness, you can't unsee it. Once you recognize you've been performing instead of being, you can't go back to the performance. He's also experiencing something that terrifies him more than anything else. He's starting to feel not just anger or frustration, which are the emotions the masculine has been conditioned to accept, but everything. Sadness, grief, longing, tenderness, vulnerability. All the emotions he buried decades ago, maybe lifetimes ago, are rising to the surface, demanding to be acknowledged. And he has no idea how to process them. He was never taught. He was taught to push through, to be strong, to figure it out logically. But you cannot logic your way through a spiritual awakening. You cannot think your way out of a heart opening. The only way through is to feel, and feeling is the one thing he's been avoiding his entire life. This is where the pain comes in. The divine masculine's awakening is painful because he's not just feeling his current emotions. He's feeling everything he's ever suppressed. Every moment of vulnerability he shut down. Every tear he swallowed. Every truth he denied. It's all coming up at once, a tidal wave of emotion that threatens to drown him. And he doesn't know that this is healing. He thinks he's breaking. He thinks something is wrong with him. He might even think he's losing his mind. Because the ego interprets the death of illusion as actual death, and it will fight for survival with everything it has. What triggers this collapse? You did. Not intentionally, not manipulatively, but energetically. When you stopped chasing him, when you stopped making him the center of your universe, when you chose yourself and your healing over the connection, you created a void. And that void is what's pulling him into his awakening. For so long, your energy was focused on him, trying to make him see the connection, trying to make him choose you, trying to convince him of what you both knew was real. And that energy, though it came from love, was actually enabling his avoidance. As long as you were chasing, he could run. As long as you were focused on him, he didn't have to focus on himself. But when you turned that energy inward, when you started pouring into yourself all the love you were trying to give him, everything shifted. He felt the withdrawal of your energy like a physical loss. Suddenly, the one person whose love he could always count on, even if he was running from it, was no longer available in the same way. The connection didn't disappear, but its frequency changed. It went from desperate and pleading to sovereign and whole. And that shift terrified him more than your chasing ever did. Because your chasing confirmed his fear that love is conditional, that it requires him to be someone he's not. But your sovereignty, your wholeness, your peace, that reflected back to him the possibility of unconditional love. And unconditional love is the most terrifying thing to someone who believes they are fundamentally unworthy of it. So he started to feel your absence, not as relief, but as loss. He started to notice the silence where your energy used to be. He started to sense that something fundamental had changed, and he couldn't control it or fix it or manipulate it back to the way it was. And that lack of control is what's cracking him open. Because control was his last defense against feeling, and now it's gone. He can't control you anymore. He can't predict your energy or rely on your attention. You've become a mystery to him, and that mystery is drawing him in deeper than your pursuit ever could. This is the sacred paradox of twin flame dynamics. The feminine awakens the masculine not by chasing him, but by releasing him, not by convincing him of the connection, but by embodying it so fully within herself that he has no choice but to feel it. Your peace is more powerful than your pain ever was. Your silence speaks louder than your words ever could. Your sovereignty is more magnetic than your neediness ever was. And now he's feeling the full force of that magnetism, and it's pulling him into his own transformation, whether he's ready or not. But here's what you need to understand, and this is crucial. His awakening is not about you. It's not happening so he can come back to you. It's not happening to fulfill your desire for union. It's happening because his soul has reached a point where evolution is no longer optional. The universe is waking him up for him, for his own growth, for his own healing, for his own alignment with his highest self. You are the catalyst, yes, but you are not the reason. And this distinction is important because it keeps you from falling back into the pattern of making his journey about you, of waiting for his awakening to validate your worth or confirm the connection. His awakening is his own hero's journey, and you cannot walk it for him. You cannot save him from the pain. You cannot speed up the process. You cannot convince him to surrender faster. All you can do is hold your own frequency, continue your own healing, and trust that the universe knows exactly what it's doing. Because it does. Every moment of his pain is perfectly calibrated to break open exactly what needs to break. Every loss he experiences is clearing space for truth. Every ending is making room for a new beginning. The divine is not cruel. The divine is precise. And right now, that precision is dismantling everything in his life that was built on fear so that love can finally have room to grow. Let's talk about what this looks like in practical terms, because the spiritual explanation is beautiful. But you're living in a human body with human emotions, and you need to know how to navigate this. Right now, you might be feeling a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, there's relief. Finally, he's waking up. Finally, the energetic balance is shifting. Finally, your inner knowing is being confirmed. But on the other hand, there's grief. Because you can feel his pain, and even though you know it's necessary, it hurts to witness someone you love suffering. There might also be frustration. You've been awake for so long, doing your work, holding the frequency, and part of you might be thinking, why did it take him this long? Why did I have to go through my awakening alone while he stayed asleep? These feelings are valid, all of them. You're allowed to feel relief and grief and frustration simultaneously. You're allowed to be grateful for his awakening while also being angry that it took so long. You're allowed to hold space for his transformation while also acknowledging that you're tired of holding space. The key is not to judge yourself for these feelings or try to spiritually bypass them. Feel them. Fully let them move through you. Because your emotions are not obstacles to your enlightenment. They are the pathway. Every feeling you allow yourself to experience fully is a layer of healing, a release of old energy, a recalibration of your frequency. And as you feel your own emotions, remember to maintain your boundaries. Just because he's awakening doesn't mean you need to rush back into connection with him. Just because you can feel his pain doesn't mean you need to rescue him from it. Just because his soul is calling out doesn't mean you need to answer in the way his ego wants you to. Your job is not to save him. Your job is to stay sovereign, to keep choosing yourself, to hold your frequency steady while he goes through his process. Because if you abandon yourself to tend to his awakening, you'll both end up back where you started, caught in the same cycle of codependency and avoidance. This is where many divine feminines stumble. They feel his awakening beginning, and they interpret it as a sign to reach out, to offer support, to re-engage. But that's not what the moment is asking for. What it's asking for is trust. Trust that he's exactly where he needs to be. Trust that his soul is being guided by the same divine intelligence that guided yours. Trust that your continued sovereignty is more supportive than any words you could offer. Because the truth is, he doesn't need you to guide him through his awakening. He needs you to be the living proof that awakening is possible, that transformation is real, that love exists beyond fear. And you do that not by engaging with him, but by continuing to embody the frequency of wholeness within yourself. There's something else happening beneath the surface of his awakening that you need to understand. He's starting to remember you, not the version of you he knew in the physical, but the essence of you, the soul of you, the truth of you. For so long, his perception of you was filtered through his wounds and fears. He saw you as a threat to his control, a disruption to his carefully ordered life, a mirror reflecting back everything he didn't want to see in himself. But now, as his walls crumble and his heart opens, he's beginning to see you clearly for the first time, and what he sees is taking his breath away. He's seeing your strength, the way you held space for the connection even when he was running. He's seeing your grace, the way you released him without bitterness or resentment. He's seeing your sovereignty, the way you chose yourself and your healing over the desperate need for his validation. And he's seeing your love, not as the needy, grasping thing he feared, but as the most powerful force he's ever encountered. Your love didn't diminish when he ran. It didn't turn to hate when he rejected you. It transmuted into something higher, something purer, something that asks nothing of him and offers everything. This recognition is both beautiful and terrifying for him. Beautiful because he's finally seeing what was there all along, the depth of connection, the truth of the bond, the reality of divine love. Terrifying because seeing it means he can no longer deny it. He can no longer pretend the connection was just infatuation or projection or temporary insanity. He can no longer tell himself that walking away was the right choice. The truth is staring him in the face, and the truth is that he ran from the most real thing he's ever experienced. And now he has to sit with that. He has to feel the regret, the grief, the loss. He has to acknowledge that his fear cost him something precious. And that acknowledgement is part of his awakening, part of his healing, part of his growth. But here's where it gets interesting. Even as he's remembering you, even as he's feeling the pull of the connection more strongly than ever, he still might not reach out. He might still maintain the silence. And this is where you have to trust the process even more deeply, because his silence is not rejection. His silence is processing. He's integrating massive shifts in consciousness. He's rebuilding his entire understanding of himself and love and vulnerability. He's learning a new language, the language of the heart, and he's not yet fluent. Reaching out to you right now would require a level of vulnerability he hasn't yet mastered. It would require him to admit he was wrong, to acknowledge his fear, to open his heart in a way that still feels like death to his ego. So he stays silent, but his silence is different now. It's not the silence of avoidance. It's the silence of transformation. It's the silence of a man who is finally doing the inner work, facing his shadows, feeling his feelings, and preparing himself to show up in a completely different way. And you can feel the difference, can't you? The quality of his energy has changed. It's less defended, more present, softer around the edges. Even without words, even without contact, you can sense that something fundamental has shifted in him. That's not your imagination. That's the energetic reality of his awakening. Now let's talk about what this means for you moving forward, because this is not a passive process. You're not just sitting on the sidelines waiting for his awakening to complete, so you can finally have your union. You're an active participant in the energetic dance that's unfolding. Every choice you make, every thought you think, every emotion you feel, it all contributes to the frequency you're holding. And the frequency you hold directly impacts the speed and depth of both his awakening and your eventual union. This is your moment to go even deeper into your own sovereignty, to release any remaining attachment to outcome, to surrender any lingering need for his validation, to let go of the timeline your ego has constructed for how this should unfold. Because the universe operates on divine timing, not human urgency. And divine timing is always perfect, even when it feels frustratingly slow. His awakening is happening at exactly the pace it needs to happen. Not a moment too soon, not a moment too late. Every delay is purposeful. Every moment of waiting is sacred preparation. Both of you are being refined, polished, prepared for a level of union that requires a depth of healing neither of you has fully achieved yet. So what do you do while he's going through his awakening? You live your life, fully, completely, unapologetically. You pursue your passions, nurture your friendships, build your dreams, create your reality. You don't put your life on hold waiting for him to be ready. You don't make your happiness contingent on his healing. You recognize that your life is happening right now, in this moment, and this moment is just as sacred and valuable as the moment of union you're anticipating. You stop treating this phase as the before, as if real life doesn't start until he comes back. This is real life. This is your life, and it's beautiful and full and worthy of your complete presence. And as you live fully, as you embody joy and purpose and sovereignty, you naturally maintain the high frequency that supports both your healing and his. You become a beacon of light, not because you're trying to attract him back, but because you're aligned with your own soul. And that alignment is magnetic in a way that neediness and waiting never could be. The universe responds to frequency, not effort. It responds to being, not doing. So the more you simply be yourself, your whole, authentic, sovereign self, the more you naturally create the energetic conditions for union. There's also a deeper layer to this that often gets overlooked. His awakening is triggering your final layers of healing. The emotions you're feeling right now, the grief, the frustration, the exhaustion, they're not just about him. They're about you. They're showing you where you still have attachments to release, where you still have wounds to heal, where you still have growth available. This is the final purification before union. The universe is asking you to examine every place where you're still making him responsible for your happiness, where you're still waiting for external validation, where you're still operating from lack instead of abundance. And this examination might be uncomfortable. You might realize that despite all your healing, there's still a part of you that's waiting for him to complete you. There's still a part of you that believes union will finally make you whole. There's still a part of you that's measuring your worth by whether or not he chooses you. These are the subtle ways the wound still lives in you, and his awakening is bringing them to the surface so you can finally release them. Because true union, the kind that lasts, the kind that's built on divine love rather than human need, can only happen between two people who are already whole within themselves. So as he breaks open, you're being invited to break open too. Not in the same way, not with the same intensity, but in the final, subtle ways that will complete your transformation. You're being asked to release the last threads of codependency, the last whispers of unworthiness, the last remnants of the belief that you need him to be okay. And as you release these, as you stand more fully in your own completeness, you naturally rise to the frequency where union becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Let me tell you what's coming, because you need to know that this pain has a purpose, that this process is leading somewhere beautiful. As the divine masculine continues to awaken, as he continues to face his shadows and feel his feelings and dismantle his false self, something miraculous happens. He starts to embody his true power, not the false power of control and dominance, but the real power of presence and authenticity. He learns that vulnerability is not weakness, it's the greatest strength. He discovers that feeling is not dangerous, it's the pathway to truth. He realizes that surrender is not defeat, it's liberation. And as he embodies this new frequency, as he becomes the awakened masculine, he naturally begins to move toward you, not from need, but from recognition, not from fear of loss, but from celebration of love, not as the runner returning to the chaser, but as an equal meeting an equal, as a sovereign soul recognizing another sovereign soul. The dynamic between you shifts completely. There's no more push and pull, no more runner and chaser, no more power struggle. There's just two people, two souls, two hearts, meeting in the space of unconditional love and choosing each other from wholeness rather than woundedness. This is what you've been waiting for. Not just his return, but his transformation. Not just reunion, but sacred union. The kind of connection where both people are fully themselves, where vulnerability is celebrated, where truth is honored, where love is expressed freely without fear or defense. The kind of connection that heals rather than wounds, that expands rather than contracts, that elevates rather than diminishes. This is what's being prepared. This is what his awakening is creating space for. This is why the wait has been so long and the process has been so intense. And here's the most beautiful part. When union finally comes, and it won't feel like the end of a journey. It will feel like the beginning. Because everything you've both been through, all the pain and growth and transformation, it was never about getting to union. It was about becoming the people who are capable of sustaining union. It was about healing the wounds that would have destroyed the connection. It was about releasing the patterns that would have kept you stuck in toxicity. It was about evolving into the highest versions of yourselves, so that when you come together, you can create something truly extraordinary. So right now, in this moment, as you feel the waves of his awakening moving through the energetic bond you share, I want you to take a deep breath. I want you to place your hand on your heart and acknowledge how far you've come. I want you to honor the strength it's taken to hold your frequency while he found his way. I want you to celebrate your sovereignty, your healing, your growth. Because you, beautiful soul, you are not just waiting for union. You are becoming union. You are embodying the frequency of divine love so fully that union is no longer something you seek. It's something you are. And as you embody this frequency, as you stand firmly rooted in this truth, as you anchor yourself in this higher vibration day after day, moment after moment, his awakening accelerates in ways you cannot even fully comprehend from your human perspective. Not because you're doing anything to him directly, not because you're manipulating energy or trying to force his hand, not because you're sending him telepathic messages or performing rituals or desperately trying to make something happen through sheer force of will, but because your light has become so bright, so steady, so unwavering, so magnificently radiant that it naturally illuminates the path for him. You are the lighthouse in his storm, standing tall and unshakable while the waves crash around him, while his ego thrashes and resists, while his fears threaten to consume him. You are the beacon that cuts through his darkness, the constant point of reference that his soul recognizes even when his mind cannot yet comprehend it. You are the proof, the living, breathing evidence that transformation is not only possible, but inevitable. You are the walking testament to what happens when someone chooses to do the inner work, when someone commits to their healing, when someone decides that their wholeness matters more than their wounds. You are the living embodiment of the love he's been afraid to claim, the love he's been running from, the love that terrifies him because it demands that he become the highest version of himself. And every single day that you choose yourself, every moment that you stand firmly in your sovereignty without apology or explanation, every breath that you take from a place of wholeness rather than lack, every decision you make from your healed heart rather than your wounded ego, you are supporting his journey in the most powerful way possible. You are holding space energetically for his transformation without losing yourself in the process. So, beloved, let this be your reminder. Let these words sink deep into your heart and anchor there. His awakening has begun, whether you can see the evidence of it yet or not, whether he's reached out or remains silent, whether the 3D reality reflects it or not. And yes, it's painful for him, excruciatingly so at times, and it's messy because awakening always dismantles everything that isn't real. And it's raw because he's being stripped of every defense mechanism and false identity he's ever constructed to protect himself from feeling. But it's also sacred beyond measure, divinely orchestrated in its perfect timing, and necessary for his soul's evolution, and beautiful in ways that will only be fully understood in hindsight, when you both look back and see how every painful moment was actually a gift in disguise. You don't need to save him from this process, even though every fiber of your being might want to reach out and ease his pain. You don't need to guide him through it with your wisdom and insights, even though you've walked this path before him and know the way. You don't need to prove anything to him about your connection or convince anyone, including him, of what you know to be true in your soul, or make anything happen through force or manipulation or desperate energy. All you need to do, and this is both the simplest and most challenging instruction, is trust. Trust the process with every cell of your being, even when it makes no logical sense. Trust the divine timing, even when it feels like nothing is moving and everything is stagnant and you've been waiting forever. Trust that the same infinite intelligence that guided your awakening, that walked you through your dark night of the soul, that held you when you thought you couldn't take another step, is now guiding his awakening with the same precision and care. Trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it should, in perfect divine order, orchestrated by forces far greater and wiser than our human minds can comprehend. And while you trust, while you surrender into that deep knowing, keep living your life fully and vibrantly. Keep growing and expanding and evolving into higher versions of yourself. Keep choosing yourself in every decision, big and small, from what you eat to how you spend your time to who you allow into your energy field. Keep embodying the frequency of love, not just in relation to him, but in every area of your life, in how you treat yourself, in how you show up in the world, in how you interact with every person you encounter. Because union begins with you. It has always begun with you. This is the secret that so many twin flames miss while they're focused externally on their counterpart. The moment you stop waiting for him to complete you, the moment you release that disempowering belief that you are somehow half of a whole, and start celebrating the completeness you already are, the wholeness that has always been your true nature, everything shifts in the quantum field. The moment you release the need for union to validate your worth, the moment you stop looking for external confirmation that you are lovable and desirable and enough, and start recognizing that your worth is inherent, that it was established the moment your soul came into existence, that nothing and no one can add to or diminish it, the energetic blocks that have been holding union at bay begin to dissolve like ice in the sun. The moment you surrender the timeline completely, releasing your grip on how and when and where union should happen, and trust divine orchestration fully, getting out of your own way and allowing the universe to work its magic without your interference, the universe can finally deliver what you've been calling in, what your soul has been magnetizing, what has always been destined for you. His awakening is not the end of your journey. as much as it might feel like the culmination of everything you've been working toward. It's not even the beginning of union, though it is certainly a significant milestone on the path. It's simply the next chapter in a story that's been written in the stars since before either of you took human form, since before your souls agreed to this sacred mission, since before time, as we understand it, even existed. And every chapter, even the painful ones that make you question everything, especially the painful ones that bring you to your knees and force you to surrender at the deepest levels, is sacred and purposeful, and exactly what your soul signed up for. Every moment of waiting is preparation, preparing you to hold the frequency of union, strengthening you so you can handle the intensity of twin flame love, teaching you patience and trust and surrender. Every tear you've cried is purification, releasing old pain and ancestral wounds and karmic patterns that would have blocked your union. Every choice to love yourself, to honor your needs, to set boundaries, to choose your peace over the chaos of the connection, is a step closer to the union you've been dreaming of, bringing you into energetic alignment with the reality where that union already exists. So tell me, beautiful soul, have you felt this shift? Have you sensed his energy changing, his walls coming down, his heart beginning to open? Have you noticed the waves of emotion that aren't yours, the dreams that feel like visitations, the knowing that something fundamental has changed? Drop a comment and share your experience. Your story might be the confirmation another soul needs to trust what they're feeling. And know this, you are not alone in this journey. You are held, supported, and guided every step of the way. The divine masculine's awakening has begun, and it's bringing you both closer to the love you were always meant to share.